Welcome to the Ogles channel. Thanks for watching today, and let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy Color game. And today focus on a game called Dragon Warrior Monsters 2 for the Game Boy Color. Now, Dragon Warrior as a franchise has been around since like the dawn of RPG gaming, and Pokemon came out in like 96, 97, somewhere in that era, and Dragon Warrior Monsters basically just takes those two franchises and squishes them together into one single game. You have the adventure and the exploration aspect of Dragon Warrior, along with like kings and kingdoms and all of that, and then you have the monster capturing and breeding aspect of Pokemon, and they really do forge like a path of their own. But if I was going to compare it like more the one than the other, I would say it's more of a Dragon Warrior game than a Pokemon game. Hence the title still, Dragon Warrior within that. Now, I've not played Dragon Warrior Monsters 1 yet. Dragon Warrior Monsters 2 just simply came up in the request earlier than the first one, so that's the one we're going to be covering first. But Dragon Warrior Monsters 2 actually comes in two separate versions, just like Pokemon. I mean, they're really trying to emphasize the Pokemon kinship here. You can get Cobi's journey as well as Terra's adventure, and from my understanding, they're pretty much the exact same game. All the monsters are in each game, just different locations for the monsters, and at the very end of the game, you're going to get a separate key for Cobi and for Terra to open up a separate world that you can go into and explore. But for the most part, they're like 98% the exact same game. But for our purposes, we are going to be playing Cobi's Journey just because that's the one that I chose. Now, this particular game did get moved up in the queue a little bit because the German Mink and Lyndon Rach both requested it in one of my earlier videos, so naturally moved it up in the queue. And if there's a game that you want to see me cover sooner than later, let me know the name of that game in the comments down below, and just like Dragon Warrior Monsters 2, I'll move it right on up. But let's go ahead and get into the actual game. Now, as I start the videos up, looking at the box art for the game first, and the box art here is going to be a little bit unique because we have two separate versions of the game, which means we have two separate covers to look at, but both covers are going to be very similar in their overall design here. For Cobi's Journey, you're going to have Cobi smack dab in the middle, and for Terra's Journey, you're going to have Terra smack dab in the middle, and they are brother and sisters, just simply who you get to play as. And surrounding each of them are going to be different monsters from the Dragon Warrior franchise, and these are the monsters you're going to fight throughout the game, but also monsters that you can sort of capture and use on your team to continue fighting through the rest of the adventure. Now, both covers are going to have the very first monster that you capture, which is going to be a little blue slime. His name is Slash. And also both covers are going to have at least one boss on it from the game. On Cobi's Journey, he's going to have this little rock. I think it's called like the Chaos Rock, and he's going to look a lot like Graveler here. And on Terra's Adventure, the boss on this one is going to be the Mad Condor, who is that bird off to the left-hand side. But for the most part, these are all monsters that you're going to see. I think I saw every single one of these throughout the adventure. The only one I can't remember seeing this time around was the Golem, who's on Cobi's Journey here, who's in the back right-hand side. But I do remember him specifically from the Dragon Warrior franchise. But outside of that, I think I saw every single one of these monsters on both of the covers throughout the adventure. So overall, very good cover for the game. Now, when you start the actual game up here, you have a little key falling from the sky, glimmering and glistening as it's coming down. And the key is very symbolic for the game as a whole, because in order to continue the quest, or in order to continue to access all of these different worlds, you are going to have to find the different keys that are scattered about. And so the key is very important. And then the title screen displays here some very Dragon Warrior-ish sounding music in the background. And I say Dragon Warrior sounding-ish because Dragon Warrior music to me has a very distinct sound about it. And I'm not positive, but I think some of the music in this game is also reused from Dragon Warrior 3, but I'm not positive on that. You can let me know in the comments down below if I'm right or wrong for it. Now, when you start a new game up here, I do name my character Ogles. I don't go with Cobi because I want to be an individual adventure about myself. So I named him Ogles, and then the story starts up, and you and your family are on a little boat, and you're journeying to an island called Great Log, and you're going to start over your lives and become monster farmers or monster ranchers on this island. And you can, of course, talk to people on the ship and sort of gather the excitement. Nice little cutscene of like showing the island that you're going to in general. Plenty to explore. And when you get there, it has your little farm that you're going to be settling on, and your father begins to talk to you, and he has a little blue slime beside him. And like, I've never been like a big slime fan in the Dragon Warrior franchise. I mean, they were always like enemies in the regular games. It just sort of seemed like trivial enemies. But seeing a slime as an individual sprite here, hopping up and down, you can talk to him. I don't know, the slime is beginning to win me over a little bit, and I can sort of see the appeal behind the Dragon Warrior slime here. Now, from here, you can journey around your farm. You can talk to some of the monsters who are already there, learn some of the basics of like how the farm functions, and you can also go talk to your mother, and your mother is going to tell you at the post office, your grandmother has sent us a pie that you need to go pick up. Now, particularly, it's called a nut pie, and I presume it's like a pecan pie or a walnut pie, and if it's one of those, like I can fully understand like the hype behind it because I love myself a good pecan pie. But on your way up to the post office to get the nut pie, you meet your arch nemesis of the game, who's going to be the king's son, Kamiha, and a spirit monster named Warabu. Now, Kamiha and Warabu are going to be very reckless here. They're sort of mean, like a bully. They push you out of the way, rush off to the next screen. You're like, man, that was really rude. You get to the next screen, they're like taking the merchant's items and sort of tossing them back and forth. So playing like monkey in the middle or something. You're like, man, Kamiha is a real jerk in the game. And then you finally journey past all of those screens, and you get to the post office. You get the nut pie. Now, on your way back to your family, Kamiha and Warabu are going to confront you. They're going to try to steal the pie from you, and in the process of this, the pie is going to be flung down the well in the city hall here. Now, somehow the pie stays intact, and so we all journey down the well trying to find the pie. They get down there, and they begin to fight over the pie, Kamiha and Warabu, and in the middle of their fight, they accidentally hit the navel or the plug of the entire island here, and when they hit that, essentially all the, I guess, spirit or the essence of the island begins to fly out, and if all of the essence flies out, then the island is going to sink, and so Warabu plops himself into the hole in order to sort of seal it up for the moment. Now, Kamiha, being who he is, flees the scene of the accident, and Warabu tells me to go get one of the king's men or one of the monster ranchers to come and essentially assess the situation and try to find a real plug to seal this up so we don't end up sinking the island. And so I go out there, I talk to everybody, and no one believes me. They all assume I'm just a friend of Kamiha, I'm playing a prank, I'm just, crying wolf. No one believes me, so I go back to Warabu, tell him what's going on. He's like, all right, so no one wants to take a kid seriously, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you a key to a oasis realm, and if you go to the door inside the little cave here, you can actually go through the door and escape into a separate dimension of the oasis realm, and inside that realm, you should be able to find yourself a plug and bring the plug back to me, and we'll plug the island up. Now, before I do that, me and Tara go back to our farm, sort of discuss what's going on, figure out the plan for this. Tara says that she's going to stay behind, but doesn't want me to go alone, and so they give me the slime monster in order to go along with me, and the slime is named Slash, and he's going to be my first monster I'm going to be able to use inside my battles. So now I have my first monster, I have the key to the oasis realm, I go back through the little well here, past Warabu, and go to this magical door, and if I use different keys on this door, I can go to all these different realms, and the only key I have at the moment is the oasis, so I go through it and I journey off into the oasis realm to try to find a plug to seal up the land of Great Log. Now, the oasis realm that we just journeyed to is going to be very much of a desert aesthetic, and all the enemies are going to fit that direction as well. And the first one we're going to come across is something called a cacti ball, who's basically a prickly little fella here, basically a cactus. We're also going to encounter a spotted slime, who's going to be essentially like a slime, but more of a deserty colored looking slime here. You can see he sort of camouflages into the sand. And anytime you encounter an enemy in this game, if you've ever played any of the Dragon Warrior games from this era, they're going to look really darn familiar. In particular, Dragon Warrior Part 3, because the sprites that are used in that game are literally recycled one for one inside this game. Some of the colors are a little bit different, but the sprites themselves are identical to Dragon Warrior Part 3 for the Game Boy Color. And I have a problem with that because those are really good, high quality sprites, and the gameplay is very different between these two games, but it is definitely a recycled sprite from Dragon Warrior Part 3. Now, also when you're fighting these battles, if you played any of the Dragon Warrior games, the battling system is going to look really darn familiar. All your attack options, or your commands, or your skills, or your spells, they're all pretty much the same as any other Dragon Warrior game from this era. But what separates this game is when you finish a battle, a lot of times the monster that you fought against is going to ask if they can join your team. And if you invite them to join your team, you get to nickname them, and you can invite them immediately to be on your team, or you can send them back to the farm to basically raise their levels over there. And so your team is ever changing of all these monsters that you're going to be collecting here. And that's the aspect that's going to bring in the Pokemon side of things. And so, yes, you can keep the same team throughout the entire game, but you're going to have a really tough time with it. The whole idea here is to collect as many monsters as you can, and we're going to get to the breeding option a little bit later, and then breed the monsters and make them more powerful. And so, yes, the battling system is going to look pretty much identical to any other Dragon Warrior game, but what happens before and after the battle is where the game is going to be mixed up and most akin to Pokemon. And anytime you actually capture a monster and add them to your team, you actually get an individual sprite of that monster following you around on your little adventure here. And I don't know, like, there's something really adorable about having like your whole little team following behind you like a little line here. I know Pokemon Yellow did it with just Pikachu, but in this game, you can have pretty much any of the monsters out there following behind you. Now, some of the sprites will obviously repeat because there's like 300 monsters in the game, but there are a ton of unique sprites to really make your adventure feel like your own journey. Now there are multiple towns that we need to go to and talk to multiple people and accomplish multiple missions here. And if you hit select, you can go to a map screen. You can see all the little towns that you need to journey to. And you press it again, you can like zoom in on the map. It's a good little map system here. And the first town we're going to go to is the town of Cobi, if I'm saying it correctly. But the town of Cobi here, we're going to go to that. They're going to talk about how like vandals, of course, have, rampaged through their town. Things aren't going real well in their town. There's also like a lack of a water supply here. And they also mentioned that there's a town south of them, the town of Asaya, might actually have a naval or a plug I can use for the land of Great Log. So I head down to the town of Asaya. When I get down there, I get roped into being like in a little circus here. And when I'm in the circus, I get to perform for the king. And it's an adorable little scene here of like all my critters like jumping through like a ring of fire. And the king is like really impressed with my particular circus act and my particular monsters. And he actually confides in me that he's really worried that he's going to be overthrown as king because his citizens are beginning to hate him. And he says, can you ask around town and try to figure out like what's going on and what I can do to make sure they don't overthrow me? And so I ask around the citizens of the town, and their biggest concern here is they just simply don't have much water. They just simply don't have a constant water supply coming through the well. I report back to the king. The king says, I'm going to fix this problem. He heads back up to the town of Cobi, and he's going to go through the canal there and try to figure out where is the water? Why is it not coming down to my town through the canal system? So he goes up to the land of Cobi. I do follow. I even follow him down into the canal there. And in the canal, I fight against some new enemies. I fight against what's called a mad candle. Looks like a melting candle or an angry candle, waving a sword here. I end up capturing that one. I name him Candy, but I can't keep him on the team, so I have to send him back to the farm. I also fight against a giant earthworm here. I think he's just simply called Giant Worm. Looks more like an Ekans almost from Pokemon. I don't know if there's any connection there between the two. But I fight that. And ultimately, the king, when he's down in the canal here, he figures out what's causing the problem. There's a beaver down here that's essentially created a dam to stop the water from flowing down to his particular city. So naturally, I go into battle against the beaver. And the beaver looks like he's wearing a little bit of a tuxedo. It reminds me of the walrus from Darkwing Duck. I'll try to put a little picture in here of that. But you go against the beaver, not too bad of a battle. And when you defeat him, he says like he was only stopping the water, trying to make this place his home here because he'd been kicked out of his home, which is like Mirage Land or like a little oasis inside the desert. And he says, if you can give me my home back, hey, I'll just journey over there and we'll be all at peace again. So the king and I agree to help the beaver. We journey to Mirage Lake. We get to the beaver's home, which is like one of the coziest looking landscapes I've ever seen in an 8-bit game. Just a adorable aesthetic that they've got going on here. And I think most of us would agree like this would be the perfect place to live if we're going to live inside of a video game. And while we're exploring the beaver's area here, we do come across the vandals who've taken over, and we also see they've stolen a ton of treasure from around the realm. And there's one leader of the vandals, and he's going to be working for the demon lord of Limbo. And he said he's trying to steal treasure from all around in order to take it back to the Lord of Limbo, who we're going to get to later on in the game, of course. But one item he has in particular that we're interested in is the title bell, because we think the title bell can be used to seal the gaping hole in the land of Great Log. And so we go to battle against the little fella here, but we don't fight against him himself. We actually fight against one of his monsters. He sends out a monster, which is a cursed lamp, which looks like the teapot from Beauty and the Beast mixed with the lamp from Aladdin. And once we defeat the cursed lamp, the lamp actually has to join our team. I named the lamp Laddie, once again, because of the scene from Aladdin. And of all the sprites of little critters that follow behind you in the game, the lamp has to be my favorite. I love like how he jumps up and down and like the top comes up and down as he's walking. It's just an amazing sprite, and if the lamp had been more powerful, the lamp would have stayed on my team the entire game. But sadly, he's only for a little while. But now that we've defeated the minion for the Lord of Limbo, he of course gives us the sinking bell, and Warabu now calls us back to the land of Great Log in order to try it out to see if it's going to actually seal up the gap. So we get there, we try it out, and wouldn't you know it, it just pops right out, and of course the essence begins to flow again, and Warabu has to hop back in it, and he says, all right, we need to try something else. And he goes, I've heard about a possible plug in the pirate realm. And he said, you need to journey to the pirate realm now and find another naval or another plug we can try out and fix this gaping hole. But the only problem is he doesn't have a key to the pirate realm. And he said, you're going to have to figure out how to find the key in the land of Great Log itself. So I begin to explore around Great Log, and there's a lot of stuff that's opened up at this point. I can actually journey in and I can fight in what are called arena battles. And within the arena battles, you actually enter into different classes here, and they sort of pit you up against other trainers and their monsters and see if you can actually take out their entire team. You have to do like 3 in a row, and there's different leagues that you can go through. I went through like the first 2 arena battles as far as like the different leagues go, but I never finished all of them in the game. That's sort of optional content that you can come back up later on and finish up if you want. But the arena battles are fun. I like the little animations of how you come down, your two little teams are opposing off against each other. And I also like how when they introduced me, they called me like Ogles and his farm friend, which is a great title for me and my team here. But like I said, I only went through like the first 2 leagues throughout the entire game. But after you've won the first league, you do unlock the ability to have the breeding center inside the game and the egg evaluator. And so the breeding center allows you to go over there and take any 2 of your creatures, and you can breed them together and get a new creature out of it. Sometimes it'll be just like the mother or the father, and sometimes you're going to get like an entirely new species. And so like there's a lot of mixing and mashing here to figure out which ones you want to get. And also when you breed your monsters, you can actually get like a +1, +2, or these plus attributes, which allows them to level up faster, be more powerful, learn more moves. And so like there's a ton of benefit to actually breeding your monsters and continually to upgrade them. Now, I didn't realize that until later in the game, and I was so satisfied with my team that I'm going to be stubborn here, and I'm going to go through the entire pirate realm and never do any breeding. But we'll get to what I end up breeding a little bit later. But just know the breeding is unlocked at this part in the game, and you can do significant progress if you actually venture into that. But it's also by winning our first arena battle, we do get the pirate key, and we can now journey our way into the pirate realm, and we can search for yet another plug to save the land of Great Log. Now, I'm not going to go over every single town inside the realm, but I'm going to hit the high points here for the overarching story. We are trying to find what's called the Har Mirror, or simply a mirror, in order to try to seal the hole in the Great Log Island with that mirror. Now, the mirror is hidden inside of a cave in the middle of the pirate realm on an island, but you can't access the island because there's essentially rocks or rocky terrain all around it, and you can't see well enough to navigate around those rocks. The reason you can't see well enough is because there's a lighthouse that's missing what's called the moon rock in order to shine light on it to help you navigate it. But the moon rock is actually hidden by pirates, and you have to go into a pirate ship in order to get the moon rock back from these dead pirates or these ghost pirates. And in order to figure out where the ghost pirate ship is, you have to go to the mermaids for them to give you a map of how to get to the pirates. In order to get the mermaids to appear, you have to defeat a hood squid who's going to give you the ability to dance in front of the mermaids. And so like, there's a lot here, but the game is like a 40-hour game, and so there's a lot of in-depth story. But essentially, we're trying to connect all these little dots here in order to get the moon rock, in order to get into the cave here, in order to get this mirror. And so as we're going through it, there are some scenes of highlight here. Like when you fight against the hood squid, he's our first difficult boss. And what I mean by that is I actually died multiple times trying to defeat him. And when I finally do defeat him, my strategy that I learned, which I'm going to use like throughout the entire game here, is you can poison your enemies. And when you do poison them, every single time at the end of the turn, they lose some of their health, and the poison effect never wears off. And so it's like a free damage meter every single time. And that's going to help immensely for the game. But once you defeat the hood squid, he joins your team, and you don't get to nickname him. They nickname him Squiz for you, which is a fine name. I'm going to stick with that for the majority of the game because he's going to stay on the team for a long time here. But once he does join your team, you can finally do the correct dance in front of the coastline here to summon the mermaids, and it's a good little cutscene here of your little critters dancing around, sort of like the circus scene from earlier. When you go into the mermaid land, I really enjoyed the landscape of the mermaid land. It reminds me of the land of Magican from the Mother series, and I think it's a really cool looking depiction of it here. And also when you finally journey your way into the pirate ship, this is a really good landscape inside the game, and just goes to show like how good this game really does look as far as like graphics are. Yes, the sprites are borrowed from Dragon Warrior Part 3, but the landscape in general, there are some really well designed areas that you're going to explore, maps that you're going to go through, and the pirate land here, or the pirate ship, it's a really good one. And when you're in the pirate ship, you get to fight against some dead pirates or some ghost pirates. And there's one of them that's like a really depressing thing that he says when you defeat him. He says something like, "How did we die before we got to enjoy the money that we amassed?" And like, if that doesn't like give you a nice little life lesson, I don't know what does, you know? And so as you're journeying through here, you finally do get to fight like the main pirate in here to get the moon rock. And when you defeat him, he also gives like a sad little thing. He says, "Child, we have lost. Finally, we can sleep." And it's like, they didn't even want to be alive anymore. They didn't want to be ghosts. They wanted to finally, journey off into their eternity. They didn't want to roam the world forever here. But we get to Moon Rock. We can finally, of course, put in the lighthouse. We can finally get rid of, or at least navigate our way to the island. We get to the island, we go into the cave, and wouldn't you know it, if old Kamaha isn't at the cave as well. He's got his little friend of bandits, and they're searching for the treasure inside the cave. And so it's like a race inside the cave trying to find the treasure. He ends up finding the treasure first, and then his friends end up becoming demons, and they actually betray Kamaha, and he starts like stomping on the ground out of anger, and the cave or the floor in the cave collapses with the demons, and Kamaha runs away, and then the mirror ends up flopping out toward us. We get the mirror, and Warabu calls us back to the Great Log Realm to try the mirror out to see if it's going to basically clog the hole up. And as expected, it does not work effectively, and Warabu has to hop back into the hole, but we do get some essence on us, and the essence allows us to essentially break heavy boulders, and so that is our new power that we have learned. And now we got to figure out how to get a key in order to journey into the Ice Realm in order to advance the story. Now, before we journey into our next realm here, a few things have changed from the Pirate Realm until now. First off, I've swapped my team up a little bit. I did decide I wanted a healing member on the team. I ended up capturing a jellyfish. I named him Dr. J here. Dr. Jellyfish, Dr. J. I've also got the hooded squid on my main team now, and so I'm continually trying to upgrade my team, but I'm really hesitant to try the breeding option because I like the way my sprites look behind me, and I just didn't want to mess that up. And so I was stubborn here, and I went ahead and went into the Ice Realm, or got the Ice Realm key by giving somebody like an army ant or something like that. But I got the Ice Realm key, journey in here with my underpowered team, and the Ice Realm is going to be one of the hardest realms in the game, because I've been so reluctant to do the breeding inside the game. But now we're officially in the Ice Realm, and it's a really cool looking level as far as like, being a snow world. Snow worlds are always like some of my favorites in the game. But to make a long story short about the Ice Realm, is there's a lake in the middle, and essentially a great winter has come, and no one can sail out from their towns, and so no trading is happening. And the 4 towns around the lake, they used to all get along, or used to all be friends, and now they are all bitter enemies of each other. And basically sadness or misfortune has fallen on every town. The towns to the north and the towns to the west hate each other because there's a mine in the middle where they've both been mining for gold, and they found gold in the center, and they cannot get along on who actually owns the gold. The town to the south has a daughter who basically does not talk to the king anymore, used to be full of life, and now is just sad and depressed all the time. And the town to the far east has a queen who basically has fallen into a deep slumber and has nightmares all the time. And so there's problems in every single one of the towns, and only when you solve all of the town's problems can you go to an elemental spring in the upper northwest part of the map here, and you can basically report back to the elemental spirit, and then once all the problems have been solved, then she can basically return the land back to what it used to be, and also give you your item that you need in order to seal the land of Great Log. And that item is called the Sky Shield. So we go about trying to solve all the little problems here. We head to the mine between the 2 towns of the north and the west. We journey into the mine itself, and we get down there and we find there's a little monster down there. He's like a looks like a graveler. He basically, I think he's called like a Craig bomb or a rock bomb or something like that. And you fight against him, and once you defeat him, he blows up, and they realize like the amount of gold inside the cave that he was guarding was like almost nothing. It's like a dusting of gold. And so they go back and report to their kings, and the kings are like, oh, well, forget it. I guess we can be at peace again. That problem is resolved. Then we go down to the town to the south, and it turns out that the king's daughter had gone into the forest, and when she was in the forest, she had overheard a plan of some demons who were getting ready to steal some treasure, obviously working for that demon of the limbo and whatnot we talked about earlier. She heard about the plan, and they actually basically sort of, I guess, stole her soul essentially. And so her soul, or a ghost, roams the forest, and we have to go to the forest and rescue her soul and bring it back to the princess. And once we do that, we've solved that town's issue. Then we have to go to the Queen Helen, and it turns out there was a demon holding her hostage in her nightmares. And once we defeat the demon of her nightmares, we've solved Queen Helen's problem. And so, like, there are multiple little areas we're trying to fight through here, and every single one of them has like a little boss. So there's a demon for the soul in the forest, there's a demon for the Queen Helen's problems, and there's a demon when we had to solve the gold problems. And so there are essentially like 3 separate bosses in this area. And once we've done all of that, we can go back to the elemental spring, we can awaken the elemental spirit there, another little boss battle, and then after close of that, we finally get the Sky Shield, and we're called back to the land of Great Log again. And Warabu tries the Sky Shield, and what do you know? Once again, it doesn't work. And of course, some essence falls on us, and now we have the ability to actually, I guess, sail across a cloud in the sky. So we got a new ability here, and we have to now find the key to the Sky Realm in order to go into our next area. And so at this point, I finally get down to what's the most fun part and the most rewarding part, and probably the most important part of the entire Dragon Warrior Monster series, and that's actually breeding your monsters to create more powerful and different creatures. I decided that I wanted to go and, at least try some out to see if I could get some more powerful creatures out of them. I went through here and man, there's no telling how many I ended up breeding here. I'd breed some, take them out into the field, train them up, give them to a higher level, go back and breed them again. And I was just simply getting a plus attribute every single time. And when you do that, like I said, they level up faster, they're more powerful, they learn more moves. I mean, they're like super monsters. I mean, they're the most amazing team that you can imagine. And it all comes from basically continuing to breed them with other monsters in order to get this powerful team. And so you can look at your team at any given time and you can see how many plus attributes it has. But the more plus attributes you have, the better your monsters are going to be. And I spent a great deal of time at this point in the game, once I finally understood the mechanics of it, of how to get a really good team, just continually breeding and going out and grinding and breeding some more, going out and grinding. It really is what separates this game from a normal Dragon Warrior game. And it also separates it from being a normal Pokemon game as well. Instead of just trying to catch them and train them up, the breeding aspect is a really, really vital and important part for the game. And also, like when you are breeding your creatures, you get these little scenes here of the two monsters like walking down a hallway, and it says like they need some quiet time alone together. They want to spend some time together, and the screen goes black, and then all of a sudden there's an egg, and it's like, yes, the miracle of life has begun here. And then the egg hatches, and you get your new little creature. I don't know, there's just something really special about like, raising your own little family of monsters here. And speaking of that, you can also go back to your farm and you can look at all the little monsters you've gained throughout the area. Your dad's continued to expand the farm. He's got like a whole little basement that you can go into, an extra little wing you can go into. And like there's all these different monsters you've captured throughout your journey. They're all just, hanging around. I don't know, the game has a lot of charm to it, and it really boils down to the idea of when you capture your monsters, you get to actually see them out and about on the farm. You get to witness them, you get to talk to them. I don't know, it actually makes it feel like you're a family with the monsters instead of just simply capturing them and put them in a Pokeball or put them in the computer or something like that. And so this aspect of the Dragon Warriors, I would say it's better than Pokemon. There's not many aspects that's better. Trust me, I like Pokemon way better. But the ability to just sort of journey to an area and see all of your monsters and have like your own little farm full of monsters, yeah, that's a really great part of the game. But let's get back to the main overarching story. Of course, we're trying to get into the Sky Realm, and so we need a Sky Key. We talked to the king, and he asked if we've seen his son. And we say yes, and he's like, hey, if you can help find him, take the Sky Key and help, track him down to bring him back. And I'm like, all right, we're on it. So we got the Sky Key, and we can journey into the Sky Realm. And this is probably the prettiest looking realm in the game. Like I enjoy like how green it is. The colors just really pop. I enjoy like floating, like of course, up in the sky here. You can see all that. It's just a really, really good looking area. And so I'm not going to go through every single town once again in the Sky Realm, but I'm going to go through the overarching story here. But we're essentially trying to find yet another plug for the land of Great Log, and this plug is going to be called the Light Orb. And when we journey into the towns, we find out a buzzard or a condor called the Mad Condor has basically come down and taken the light orb and taken it back to their nest. And so we also find out the Mad Condor abducts children as well, takes them back to the nest, I guess to eat them and whatnot. And so a crazy little bird here. And so we get the bird to finally abduct us, go back to the nest, and the light orb is not there. Like, that's fishy. So we begin to journey around the towns a little bit more, and there's one town in particular that says they have access to the light orb, but they will only let me talk to the king if I collect the heavenly armor set, like a sword, a helmet, and an armor. So I have to journey around the map here, basically journeying to all these different castles or these towers, solve puzzles like ring bells in certain orders, or get all these coffins to shut. And so there's different puzzles we have to solve, or different enemies we have to attack, or there's even like one metal slime bucket or slimer that we have to attack and kill as well. And so there's all these challenges we have to do in order to get this heavenly armor set. We take all three pieces up there, we go to the king, and the king is a amazing sprite, the best sprite in the entire game. Looks like a cross of like Bowser and Wart from Super Mario Bros. 2. And of course, great animation for that. And when you fight against him, he is a very hard boss. I can't do my poison strategy or my sleep strategy. And he debuffs my people like constantly. He's a tough boss to go through. But once we do defeat him, he basically says he's an imposter king. He's not even the real king. And when we go into the next room, the real king is Kamiha. And so we're like, what the heck happened here? And so he was evidently the kid that the Mad Condor abducted. He got into the bird nest, saw the light orb, realized the light orb wasn't even going to work as far as like a plug goes. And he's just been hanging out here being like the, king of the land, collecting all the treasures from the Sky World. And at this point, the Lord of Limbo, or the Demon Lord of Limbo, shows up and says he's been collecting treasure. And he's like, I appreciate all the treasure you have here. And he says, I tell you what, if you come to my area, I will give you a plug for your Great Log land if you give me all the treasure here inside the castle. And we're like, heck yeah, here's all the treasure. And he's like, all right, well, come to my land, and if you can defeat me, then I'll give you the final plug that you need. And we're like, holy cow. So we're gearing up for quite a little battle here. And he's an impressive sprite too. The Demon Lord of Limbo is a good little sprite. And so now we journey back to the land of Great Log. Warabu basically says, like, all right, here's the Limbo key. Head to the land of Limbo when you're ready, and you can journey through there and hopefully finally get the right plug to seal our world back up. And so we do take some time to, to do a little bit more breeding here, a little bit more time to, go out and level up a little bit. And we finally journey into the land of Limbo. Now, the land of Limbo is a really cool aesthetic. It's got like floating on like a dark ocean or like a dark cloud, and truly looks like a demonic little land here. I mean, the land of Limbo. Now, in order to get to the castle, we do have to cross a long bridge here, and on the bridge is a little demon minion from way earlier in the game, and he basically says once we hand over our plugs that didn't work, those plug treasures, like the tidal bell and the mirror and the sky crest or sky shield, hand those over to him. He will give those to the king, and we can cross the bridge. But we do have to fight him first in order to get that access to cross the bridge. And it's a fairly tough fight, but we do finally get to see what this creature actually looks like. And he's got a pretty cool little demon sprite, and his minions are neat as well. Now, I do choose to go and heal myself up before I go into the final battle, but that doesn't really matter because I lose this battle many times before I finally develop a strategy that works pretty well for me. But when you finally go up to fight the Demon Lord of Limbo, his name is D-A-R-C-K, Derek, I guess is how you would say it. That's not how I've ever spelt Derek, but I think it's how you would say, that's the only way I can think of pronounce it. Darek, maybe? We'll say, well, we're going to go with Derek. Derek is his name. Takes away some of his demon power when he has an ordinary name like Derek. But Derek here, on the way up, there's all this treasure from all these different realms all around, and he sort of gives a interesting little philosophical message here. He's like, people who collect treasure do it for one of two things. They either do it for, joy for themselves because they just enjoy collecting the treasure, and they enjoy collecting things, or they do it for the envy and admiration of others. And one way is correct and one way is wrong. And like, what a great message out there for all those retro gamers who enjoy collecting things endlessly. Are you doing it because you truly enjoy collecting the games, or are you doing it because you're doing it for the envy of others? And I don't know, it's a good little thing to try to figure out what is your motivation. Are you going to be a hero like our hero, or are you more of a villain like Derek here? But anyway, you go against Derek, and Derek is a very powerful creature. The sprite for Derek on the overworld map, great. When you go into battle here, terrible, terrible sprite. They really should have done him better justice here. But when you go against him, you can't poison him, you can't sleep him or anything like that. He has one move called like the Giga Slash, which is like almost a one-shot kill, or is a one-shot kill on whichever team member he chooses to do it to. So your best bet is to try to bait him into not doing that move. And one way you can do that is to continue to buff your characters. And if you buff your characters, he continues to try to do a move called debuffing, whatever it's called, and that sort of sacrifices one of his moves, and it's one more move that you can attack him and not have to worry about being basically one-shot killed. But it is a fairly lengthy battle, and be prepared to try it multiple times because it does live up to the, the title of final boss in the game. But once you defeat Derek here, he basically says like, you weren't doing this out of greed. You weren't trying to get treasure just because you wanted treasure and be the envy of others. You were doing it for something greater. Obviously, I was trying to save the land of Great Log, but then he also says like for something worse. So like, he's a true demon here because he sees my good actions as something bad. I don't know, just an interesting little dialogue between me and Derek. But at this point, he does give me the official navel that's going to, or official plug that's going to seal up the hole in Great Log. Warabu calls me back to the area. We put the plug in there, but at that point, Warabu says it's too late. Too much essence has escaped, and the island is going to sink anyway. It's like, well, great. I wasted all this time, and the world's going to come to a close. And he says, go warn everybody and tell them that we're getting ready to sink here. But in the process of that, like, he starts realizing everyone I've made a connection with in the game, everyone that I've changed their life for the better or helped them, they start sending their positive energy over into the plug, and they start able to seal the plug up and get the land of Great Log to float back again, back to its magic power by giving that essence back to it. And because of all the difference we made in all the different characters, the land of Great Log is able to float again. And it's a cool little cutscene of watching all the little essence flow back in and sort of remember all the places that you were at throughout the game. And at this point, the land of Great Log has been saved. Warabu's happy. The king invites me up there. They give me like a ovation here. They're all excited for it. You talk to everybody how proud they are of you. And you finally journey out. You talk to your sister. And your sister says something like, well, you look so sad. Like, why are you sad? And it's because you realize the journey is coming to a close. Like we worked hard for all this, and now it's over. And then Warbu shows up and says, it's not over. I got another key for you here. And he says this key can explore even more realms. And so like there are more realms to explore if you want to, continue to find more monsters, level up, do all the optional stuff in the game. And that's not the only key that's optional. There are multiple keys that were optional that we found throughout our experience here. I just didn't mention them in the main review. But at this point, the credits do begin to roll, and of course, they got little scenes or little cut scenes from all around the different realms we were at, all around the different little home world we went to. And so a great little closing out here. And then the final post-credit scene shows us fighting over the nut pile once again. And of course, we hit the navel, and it looks like the game is getting ready to start all over again. A funny little post-credit scene to sort of, make a nice little package out of the entire game here. But overall, a excellent game. I would say it's more akin to Dragon Warrior than Pokemon because you are going through so many quests and so many missions and you're solving so many issues of villagers and kings and saving kingdoms, and the overarching quest here fits definitely more into the Dragon Warrior side of things. And as far as like the capturing and catching of Pokemon or capturing and catching monsters, it's not as addictive as it is in the actual Pokemon game, but it is fun to actually capture monsters, see them on your farm, have them follow behind you. The fun of this game is going to really fall into the breeding category, creating new monsters, trying to strengthen your team to the best of your ability, how to combine monsters, have the best, most powerful moves that you want. And there's so much experimentation you can do when it comes to the breeding of monsters. And it's a real shame I went through like 2/3 of the game before I actually ventured into that, because like I said, that is the best part of the game. And that's what separates this game from all other like monster catching or I guess Dragon Quest games in general. And if you're playing through the game, I suggest as soon as you have the breeding opportunity, go ahead and start that, and it'll make it for a much easier game for you at the same time. But does the game come to a close like when you actually get the credits to roll? That's the other really cool part about this game, is there's so much like optional stuff here. Every one of the realms that I explored, even though I beat the core story in them, there were other bosses in those realms. There were other areas to explore. There's so much to just go through. And not even just those realms. There's like 5 or 6 extra realms that you can journey into by keys you get. And you can take them to a key, get them to evaluate the key, get a new realm that you can explore. And so it's just like the options are almost limitless as far as like how long this game could take you to beat. Do you want to collect all 300 monsters? Do you want to go through every realm? Do you want to defeat every optional boss? Do you want to collect every key? I mean, the stuff that you could do in this game is like, I bet it could take you 100 hours to actually finish this game, maybe more than that. And so like, as far as like a game that has like as much content as possible, Dragon Warrior Monsters 2 is probably the most content heavy Game Boy Color game like I have come across. I mean, I can't think of anyone that even comes close. The next closest one was probably like Dragon Warriors Part 3, but even that, like, it came to an end and it was over. This one just sort of goes on seemingly almost for hours and hours and hours. I can't say forever because there is an end, but like you could dump well over 100 hours, I feel, into this game. Me personally, it probably took me like somewhere between 35, 40 hours maybe to finish, if I was guessing. I'd have to check the time on it exactly, but I'd say it's somewhere in that ballpark. If I'm looking at a number rating for this game, I'm probably going to give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. That's what we're going to go with, 8.5 out of 10. If I could change a few things about it, I would definitely mix the soundtrack up a little bit. I didn't particularly like the soundtrack a lot. It got a little bit repetitive, and truth be told, a little bit on my nerves before the game was actually over. I'd probably also mix up like sort of the capturing aspect a little bit. It wasn't necessarily my favorite aspect on how to capture the monsters, but as far as like a great story, great optional material, the sprites, I mean, there was so much great stuff about the game, and honestly, it was just a lot of fun. And so I think 8.5 out of 10 is about where I'm going to put it on the scale. But if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check my other videos listed up above, and go out there, find a great game to play. Simply have a great rest of the day.